Thank you very much for joining. I'm not going to take a lot of your time because we are here. This is an extra lecture slotted into our already fairly busy spring schedule, and that is because we have had an opportunity. And the opportunity is hearing, if I may say so, from the horse's mouth, from one of our own AIAS active committee members who has been very prominent lately as one of the leaders of the Judean Desert Caves excavations that in this current season have made some remarkable discoveries. I'm sure many of you have read about them, and that's precisely why you are here. So we're very grateful to Eitan Klein from the Israel Antiquities Authority, still in the field quite a bit, I understand, Eitan, that's right, isn't it? And that he's found time to address us this evening, or in the case of listeners from the United States this morning. Eitan is the Deputy Director of the Antiquities Theft Prevention Unit with the IAA. One hardly needs emphasizing that hardly needs emphasizing as an important part indeed of the protection of Israel antiquities. He's also a lecturer in history and archaeology in the Department of Land of Israel Studies at Ashkelon Academic College. And I think Eitan and I first met when he was visiting in Oxford at the Center for Hebrew and Jewish Studies. So his specialisms are the archaeology of Judea during the Second Temple period and the Bar-Kokhba Revolt. Many of the finds, but by no means all of them, you'll see relate to that period. Also speleology, I'm sure I don't need to tell you that's about caves, settlement patterns, and pagan cults, going into the late Roman period in Judea. He's also been co-director of the project I mentioned, Judean Desert Caves, for 4 years now, and he's going to tell us all about that. The lecture simply called New Discoveries from the Judean Desert Caves, and I'm sure you'll be welcome to ask questions afterwards. So over to Eitan.
Okay, so thank you, Tessa, Anthony, and everybody. It's been a pleasure for me to speak in this forum, very honored forum. Today, I hope you see what the presentation. One moment. Okay, so today I'm going to present the Judean Desert Caves Archaeological Project that we initiated in the Judean Desert during the years 2017 and until today. Even this morning, today, we were in the field, our team, and we will continue until the end of May, and hopefully also next year in the next season. So I will start my presentation in 1947, and I'm talking a little bit about the history of the Judean Desert Caves, but I'm going to speak about that from the looters' point of view and not from the archaeological discoveries. So in 1947, and everybody knows that, two Bedouins from the Ta'amra tribe entered into a cave close to Khirbet Qumran, a small ruin in the northern side part of the Judean Desert. And the story, how we know it today, tells that they found the first 7 scrolls. They sold it in Bethlehem to Iskandar Kando, And from then it went to the USA. Eventually it was sold, some of them to Yigael Yadin, others to his father, Sukenik. But and I'm speaking about Luther's point of view, the Bedouin's point of view, they understood that they have a treasure in their hands. They understood that if they will dig and excavate in the numerous caves that the Judean desert are blessed with, they will find more scrolls, they will find more ancient documents, and it was like the gold rush, okay? In the Judean desert, they passed cave after cave since 47, and actually until those days, our days, and they looted whatever they could. Eventually, they sold it through the antiquities market in Bethlehem to Jerusalem, and most of them got to the archaeologists in the Rockefeller Museum. So like I said, it's 70 years of looting in the Judean desert, in the northern side of the Judean desert, where until 67, the Jordanian kingdom ruled, and also in the southern side of the border, in the Israeli side. The looters operated without any fear, entered into caves, excavated, and found many interesting and very important artifacts. And my story, or our unit, the unit for the prevention of antiquities looting, story starts in 2009, and I will talk about that shortly. But in 2009, and I'm sure many of you are familiar with this document, ancient document. In 2009, we got information that that a middleman from Bethlehem is trying to sell an ancient document, this document, in the antiquities market in Jerusalem. He is looking for a buyer. He wants to sell it for $2 million. And we have informers inside the antiquities market. So we tried to negotiate, and we understood that the looters, the groups of looters, the group of looters that found this document came from a small village close to Hebron called Seir, a Palestinian village. And eventually we wanted to seize the item because we understood that it's a very important item. We are talking about a receipt of ketubah, and the first line states the date of the document, year 4 for the destruction of the house of Israel, which was dated to 4 years after the Bar-Kokhba Revolt. It's a period of time that in our possession, in the research of the documents, the Bar-Kokhba documents, there aren't any other documents from this particular date 4 years after the Bar-Kokhba Revolt. So we wanted to seize it, and we initiated a mission against the middleman. One of our workers impersonated to a businessman that wants to buy this precious artifact. Eventually, a meeting was set in a hotel, lobby hotel in Jerusalem. We needed to bring a bag full with $2 million, and the middleman needed to bring the document. When the middleman put the document on the table, so the sign of the worker that gave us, all the lobby was full with detectives, police detectives, and our workers from the unit, and we jumped on the middleman. We seized the document, and today this document is being held by the Israeli national treasures. So this was in 2009, and in 2013, the same, you can say the same event happened again. Again, there were rumors in the antiquities market about a very important documents that are being trying to be being sold in the antiquities market. After emissions that we did, we succeeded to seize it. It is now in our possession, and we understood that it's a very important document. Like you can see, the script is Paleo-Hebrew, which means ancient Hebrew from the first temple period. We dated it through C14 examination and also by the shape of the letters to the 7th century BCE, approximately. And it's a shipment document of 2 jars of wine from a place called Na'arata, north of Jericho, to Jerusalem. This is why the papyrus is called the Jerusalem Papyrus, and this is the first time or the most ancient appearance of the name Jerusalem outside of the Bible in Hebrew script. So this is, of course, a very important document. And again, it came from a middleman from Bethlehem who got it from a group of looters from the village of Seir, the same village like the group of people that found the 2009 document. We understood that this group of looters is active in the Judean Desert caves, and we started to look for them. Okay, so we went to the desert day after day after day, and we put watch outs, and we tried to somehow to get close to them in many ways. And eventually in November 2014, we saw them digging inside a cave called the Cave of the Skulls in Nahal Tze'elim. We waited above in the head of the cliff above the cave until they climbed up. So here you can see 2 of them standing in front of the opening of the cave. And eventually we succeeded to catch them. And you can see here all their belongings, many excavation equipment, metal detectors, ropes, a lot of food that could stay for even a week. This is what they wanted to do, I suppose, to stay in a week in the cave and to excavate. And they sat in jail for 2 years. After that, now we know that they are not active, okay, because we are still tracking their movement. But so this, and again, those looters were from the village of Seir. Okay, so we knew by their names who are the people who are digging from this group of looters, but they sat in jail and they were from the village of Seir. So after we went down to the cave of the skulls, we saw the mass destructions that the looters made to the archaeological layers in the cave. It was almost a total loss of the archaeological layers. And of course, many of the artifacts that were put in ancient times in the cave were looted already. But we felt that we need to somehow rescue the other or the remains of artifacts that are still there. And therefore, we initiated an excavation, a rescue excavation in May 2016. The excavation was joined to the Israel Antiquities Authority. I was one of the directors. Amir Ganor, the head of the Antiquities Theft Prevention Unit, also was a director, and also two researchers from the Hebrew University, Dr. Uri Davidovich and Roy Porat. We all excavated together in the cave for 3 weeks with something like 400 volunteers who came from Israel and from other countries. It was a very interesting and very fun time, actually. And eventually, of course, we found a lot of pottery, glass finds, metal finds, and other finds. But we also found a very unique artifact. This is one of them inside one of the deep crevices, the deepest area of the cave. We found inside a small niche in the cave, in the cave, we found this bundle of textile. It was concealed below the surface of the earth, and we didn't open it until today, actually, but we know what's inside, and this is because this cave was already excavated in the 60s by Yochanan Aharoni, Professor Yochanan Aharoni. At that time, he was in the Hebrew University. Afterwards, he moved to Tel Aviv University, but he excavated the cave of the skulls, and he found 2 other bundles of textile, very, very similar to the ones that we found. He found them 5 meters from the areas that we found this bundle of textile, and inside of them, you can see what he found. So it's jewelries, and when we dated the bundle of textile, we got by C14 examination, we know now that this jewelry hoard is from the Chalcolithic period. So we suppose that a woman in the Chalcolithic period fled to the cave, hid inside the cave, and she took her valuable belongings. She hid them inside the very deep area of the cave, and eventually it remains there. She never come back. So it's a story about this woman. Suppose it's a woman because it's jewelries. So we have 3 bundles of her jewelries now. Okay, 2 were found by Aharoni in the 60s, and 1 by us. And actually it's on display in the Israel Museum, the bundles of Yochanan Aharoni. We will put ours beside those of Yochanan Aharoni. Another important findings that we found in the Cave of the Skulls was 2 very small, and you can see here, it's centimeters, very small fragments of papyri, and written in Hebrew or Aramaic from the 1st till 2nd century CE. It's very hard to read something, but we think that it was the part of the signs, okay, that people signed in the bottom of documents from those period. What it taught us is that inside the Cave of the Skulls, there were bigger parts of fragments of papyrus that were looted sometime in one, we don't know exactly when, but it was looted from the cave. So this is also 2 fragments that we found in 2016. Because of those findings, and because we understood that even after 70 years of looting in the Judean Desert, still you can find very important and very unique artifacts that are precious to the cultural heritage of the State of Israel. the Antiquities Theft Prevention Unit, and also the director of the Israel Antiquities Authority, Israel Chasson, we thought that we need to do something systematically in the Judean Desert caves. At that point of time, we had no, we couldn't even rappel into the caves without the help of other people, very expert people in robes. Most of the time, our inspectors stood in the head of the cliffs, looked on the, the opening of the caves, and we didn't knew what's inside, okay? And we are talking about thousands of opening of caves in the Judean Desert cliffs. So we understood that we need to do something systematically in order, first of all, to know, okay, how much damage or looting happened in those caves. In how many caves there are archaeological findings. It could be that many caves were not used for human activity. Okay, so we wanted to understand, first of all, to evaluate the human activity and also the looting activity in the Judean Desert, and then to rescue what can be rescued in our project. We initiated this project, Judean Desert Caves Archaeological Project. It was joint project for the Israel Antiquities Authority, the Ministry of Jerusalem and Heritage, who sponsored and still sponsoring the project, and the staff officer for archaeology in the civil administration in the West Bank. So we are acting in both sides of the green line, how you call it, okay, in the West Bank and also in the part of Israel. And this is the goals of our project, and I will read it now. First of all, protection of the antiquities and the caves from looting, and like I said, evaluating the looting and also the human activity in the caves, systematically survey in the cliffs of the Judean Desert between Qumran and Zohar Ravine, mapping all the caves in the cliffs and documentation all human activity, and excavations in selected caves according to the chances of finding national cultural heritage artifacts. And here you can see the map of the Judean Desert. Those are the areas that we wanted to survey from, you can say, approximately to the north of Qumran in the north, until the Khemar Ravine, Khemar Valley in the south. We are talking about 120 kilometers of cliffs and thousands of opening of caves, not just caves, it could be niches, okay? You cannot know if it's a cave or not until you check it, okay? So we needed to check everything, and we wanted for once you know, to do it systematically, because before us, there were many surveys were conducted in the Judean Desert, but they were not systematic, okay? They were not, you know, step by step, very slow in order to check everything. Most of the time, the surveys went to the bigger caves, to the famous caves, and they checked them. We wanted to check everything, okay? To know that everything was checked by us. So I will speak about our methodology of the survey. First of all, about the crew. So we are 3 directors of the project. Amir Ganor is my boss in our unit. Dr. Ofer Sion is the head of the survey unit in the Israel Antiquities Authority, and myself. And after that, we recruited nine people, nine field surveys. Three of them are archaeologists, Chagai Amer, Oria Michai, and Chaim Cohen, and other people are rope expertise that can take us whenever we want. If we want to enter into hard to access caves, they will take us there. And also geologists, metal detector experts, and other people with other expertise. Okay, so this is our crew, our team, and every day since 2017 until today, for 9 months, a year, they are in the field, okay? I'm, as a supervisor, I'm not every day in the field, but when needed, I'm, of course, going to the field and excavating, serving, whatever we need. First of all, we wanted to scan the cliff. We wanted to locate the entrances of all the caves, or what we suppose it's an entrance to a cave. We used drones in order to do that. You need to understand that a few years ago, the drone technology was not so, you cannot use it so very easily. Today, it's very easy to use it, and you can locate even in very, even in cliffs, it's very easy to operate drones that will show you the way to the opening of the caves. In this way, we found many new openings that we couldn't see from other areas just by using drones. After we found the opening of the caves, of course, we numbered them due to their section in the cliff. And then after we located them, and here you can see from photos with locations, and every opening got a number, okay? And eventually, by the way, in the publications that we will publish in the future, I hope in the near future, everybody could see the corpus of caves of the Judean Desert, all the Judean Desert caves, with the numbers, with photos that everybody could see. And you can read what's inside, which periods were found in the survey, and other activities, other phenomenon, and also mapping, plan and section of the caves. Everything will be easily shown to the reader, okay? So after we located the entrances to the caves, we need to survey, okay? And in order to do that, you need to walk from the head of the cliff or from the bottom of the cliff in order to get to the opening. Usually we are rappelling into the cliff, into the opening of the cave, or traversing into it. And then when you enter into the cave, we are starting our survey. First of all, mapping the cave. We are doing it by hand and not with technical instruments. And after that, serving archaeological survey, like we are doing in every survey, using metal detectors so we can find coins, numismatic finds, and other finds. And we are collecting everything: pottery, glass, metal, and also the remains of the looters. Okay, we are documenting also the looting activity And then afterwards, we will evaluate the chances to excavate in the cave and to find valuable or very precious artifacts such as scrolls, papyrus, organic finds that can be preserved due to the dry climate of the Judean Desert. And this is, by the way, an example of mapping one of the caves. Of course, we are transmitting it, computerize it into a plan and sections that can be shown in our final publication. And here you can see some of the remains that we are collecting from every cave that we are passing and serving. We are documenting also other phenomena inside caves, such as geological phenomena or zoological phenomena, and also botanical phenomena. Everything will be on display in the corpus of caves that we will publish, and it could be easier to people or researchers from other disciplines to look in our corpus of caves in order to see if they want to research in the cave in other disciplines. Okay. After we survey the cave, we evaluating the possibility of excavation in the cave. Some of the caves, we found them, or many, let's say more than 50% of the caves that we surveyed, we didn't find anything, okay? We mapped the cave, but no human remains were found. In other caves, we found human remains from different periods, from the Neolithic period, Chalcolithic period, of course, Iron period, Roman period, and et cetera, until modern times. But we are evaluating each cave, what are the chances if we will excavate it to find precious artifacts. And until now, we excavated in the project 12 caves. Some of them were big, some of them were very small, but we excavated 12 caves and one surface site that we also excavated. The surface sites that we excavated was something like Byzantine hermitage of monks from the Byzantine period that was built on the cliff of Nahal Chatzatzon. Of course, we will publish it in the future. I will speak here about two excavations that we conducted during the project. The first excavation that I selected from the 12 that we excavated is the excavation in Murabat cave number 4. Everybody's, or mostly everybody are familiar with Murabat caves that were excavated in 1953, 52, 53 by Ronald Devaux. These are the caves that are well known, 1, 2, 3. But there is another cave, cave number 4, and you can see it over here. Very, very small opening of a cave, 200 meters to the east of the 3 bigger caves. And this cave was previously excavated by Ronald Devaux, but when we surveyed again the cave, we understood that Ronald Devaux probably excavated less than quarter of the cave. We found there a layer, archaeological layer in situ, very nice layer, and on it we found the bottom of a basket, probably from the Chalcolithic or Neolithic period. we understood that there is a chance to find, if we will excavate, to find interesting artifact inside. So we initiated an excavation. It was in the 2 seasons, in 2019 and the second season in 2020. We used the help of volunteers, mostly from pre-army programs who came to help us. And we sifted, of course, every earth that we unearthed from the cave. And in the first season, we found 3 meters inside the opening of the cave in a small niche in the wall of the cave. In ancient times, a terrace, stone terrace was built on the niche. When we excavated it, we found a hoard of 16 Bar-Kokhba coins. And you can see here those 16 coins. One of the coins was from the first year for the revolt. 8 coins were from the second year of the revolt. And 7 coins were undated, which are probably from the year 3 and 4 of the revolt, towards the end of the revolt, which leads us to the conclusion that this hoard was concealed by one of the rebellions who fled to the Judean Desert caves towards the end of the revolt, 135, 136 CE, and he put his money in this niche and never come back. We also found in the cave a very interesting other artifacts, such as baskets. This is a basket from the Bar-Kokhba period, probably from the Bar-Kokhba period. A lot of pottery, glass, metal findings. And here you can see this comb is probably, it was still undated, but it is probably from the Bronze period. Okay, so this was our discoveries in the first season in the cave. And during the second season, we excavated below the surface of the archaeological layers that I spoke about before. We thought that we are excavating in a geological layer, actually, below the human activity. We dug for something like 30 centimeters, and then we found this opening of something hollow. When we continued to excavate, we saw that it's actually something like a basket made from some kind of plant material. And when we continue to excavate, and here you can see this is the archaeological layer, and this, what we know now is a basket, was put 30 centimeters below the archaeological layer, below the surface of human activity. And this is what we found eventually. It's a basket, you can see, well preserved, with 2 lids on it. And on the upper lid, in ancient time, they put a flat stone to keep it closed. Here you can see the basket when we took it outside. We thought at first that it's a basket maybe from the Bar-Kokhba period or Chalcolithic period. We sent it to a C14 examination, and we got the results. It was dated due to the revolts to before 2,500 years ago, which means Neolithic period. And this basket contains something like 90 to 100 liters. It's still in research. The researcher who is researching it is Dr. Naama Sukenik from the Israel Antiquities Authority, and we are still waiting for the results of the research. But actually, I think to myself that this is the most, I don't know if important, but the most unique artifacts that we found in this project, because this is the only basket that were preserved from this period of time. It's a time that there were no pottery, actually. It was, the pottery was invented a few thousand years later. So it's a really important discovery, and it was very exciting for us to find it. The second excavation is the excavations that we conducted in the Cave of Horror. The Cave of Horror is located in the northern cliff of Nahal Hever, the Hever Valley. You can see here the opening of the cave. It's 80 meters below the head of the cliff. And this is the way that we think that in ancient time, the people who entered to the cave succeeded to do it. We walked through here and then rappelled into the opening of the cave. Anyway, it's a very hard to access path. You need to use ropes, and it's really risky. Okay, it's really risky, and I wonder how they did it in ancient times. It's risky. Okay, so the Cave of Horror was excavated previously, but by Dr. Yohanan Aharoni, Professor Yohanan Aharoni, during 95 and 61. He found there 35 skeletons from the Chalcolithic and the Bar-Kokhba period, and this is why it was called the Cave of Horror. And also many organic finds, such as this sandal, leather sandal, and other artifacts. And when we started our survey inside the cave, we thought that Yohanan Aharoni excavated already everything. But then when we entered, we surveyed with metal detectors, and immediately we found 3 coins from the Bar-Kokhba period, from the Bar-Kokhba Revolt. We also found another leather sandal, very small, maybe of a child. We don't know exactly. And we understood that there are still to do inside the cave. So we initiated a new examination or excavation of the cave. This is the map, the new map that we sketched for the cave, and all the red areas are the areas that we excavated. And the cave is, there are 5 sections for the cave, okay? And what we did, we excavated everything, or all the earth that we excavated was sifted. Here you can see the 2 archaeologists sifting the earth. And this is why we found what we found, because mostly everything that we found were found in the sifters. So when you are going, next time that you are going to excavate in the Judean Desert, sift everything. Actually, we found the fragments of scrolls, or most of the fragments of scrolls that we found, and I will speak about now, were found inside the sifters, okay? And what's interesting, or more interesting, is that during the excavation of Yochanan Aharoni, he excavated, one moment, sorry, one moment. Okay, so he excavated and took all the stones and earth and built alongside the walls of the cave. He built stone terraces. Then he threw all the earth inside those terraces. What we did, we took the terraces. Okay, we actually re-excavated the terraces of Yochanan Aharoni, and from the earth that was filled the terraces, we found most of the fragments, the scroll fragments. So actually, Yochanan Aharoni excavated before us most of the fragments that we found, but because he probably didn't sift it, he couldn't find it, okay, and he threw it. So I will speak about, of course, the scrolls. We found something like 80 fragments of scrolls and leather scrolls in the cave. Most of them were found in Yochanan Aharoni's terraces. One of them, okay, the bigger one, and this is the bigger one that we found. It was found in area 5 or room number 5, the inner chamber of the cave, and it was found almost in situ. Okay, it was found inside a crevice. So we think that it could be two possibilities. Okay, or that this was the place where the scroll, the Torah scroll, the biblical scroll, was put, and this is the in situ place that it was implanted, or that it could be also that there are many animals in the caves. It could be that animals took those fragments and put them inside crevices. That's another possibility, and we cannot know for sure. And the fragments, the 80 fragments, most of them are without handwriting. Only 35 of them were found with script on them. All of them were with Greek writing, okay, like you can see here, those fragments written in Greek, and they are all from the book of the 12 minor prophets, from two sections of this book, from the prophecies of Zechariah, chapter number 8, and you can see here the lines that we succeeded to read, and from the book of Nahum, chapter number 1, but it's from the same scroll, okay? The same scroll that probably had all the 12 minor, the 12 prophecies. We found 2 of them. I should say that this is not the first time that fragments from this scroll were found. Yochanan Aharoni found before us. In 1961, he found 8 fragments from the same book, okay? And before him, Luther's found much larger fragments from the same scroll, and it got to the antiquities market. Eventually, it was published by Professor Immanuel Tov. Okay, so we have many fragments of the same scroll, the same book of the 12 minor prophets, and actually, it's a big puzzle that the researchers are trying to establish. So this is, of course, one of our great discoveries. And actually, it's the first discovery of biblical script or biblical scrolls by archaeologists in the last 70 years. Okay, so it is a discovery. Another discovery in the cave was found below one of the terraces of Yochanan Aharoni. After we excavated fully the terrace, one of the terraces of Yochanan Aharoni, we continued to excavate in the earth, in the layer of the cave, and eventually what we found a skeleton of a small, probably girl, maybe in the age 9, 10, that was put into burial in the side of the cave. You can see here the skeleton was very well preserved. Here you can see actually the skin that was preserved of the hands of this skeleton. You can see the hairs on the head that were preserved, and it was covered by textile, white textile, during the burial practice, probably. We dated the burial, and it was dated to the Chalcolithic period. And actually, it's a very important finding because Yochanan Aharoni, when he excavated the cave, he found 30-something skeletons, but it was never dated. And actually, we cannot date it today because it was buried. It was buried a few years afterwards, after the excavation, and today we cannot, there is no access to those bones. So this skeleton, this remains of a skeleton of the big groups that was found by Yochanan Aharoni can give us hints to what happened in the cave during the Chalcolithic period. Okay. Okay, so I will conclude now my presentation. So until today, more than 80 kilometers of cliffs, and this is the areas that we already surveyed, mostly everything from Qumran in the north. Today it's until Nahal Chatzatzon Valley in the south. It's something like 20 kilometers to the north of En-Gedi. Then we continued from Nahal Arugot until Masada. This is systematically fully surveyed. And to the south of Masada, we did it, but it's still not fully systematically surveyed. We need to continue and continue to survey. This will be in the next season. And what's left for us is this section from Nahal Arugot or Murabat caves, almost Murabat, until En-Gedi. So it's another 30 kilometers of cliffs that we need to fully survey until we will have the full picture, actually the full picture of human activity and and looting activity in the Judean Desert cliffs. If someone will ask me 4 years ago if this is possible to do it in 4 or 5 years, I will probably say that no, but we did it, and I think it's very important, mostly for the protection of the cultural heritage in the Judean Desert caves. And of course, we know that the most important and valuable artifacts can come from those caves. So it was one of the first missions, or very important missions, that the Israel Antiquities Authority needed to do in order to protect the cultural heritage of the state of Israel. And until now, like I said, we excavated 12 caves and 1 surface site. We surveyed more than 550 caves until now. We also surveyed a lot of niches, okay? but they were not determined by our team as a cave. Okay, so we entered to those niches, we checked them, but eventually it occurred that it's not a cave, it was not mapped, but it was checked. So we checked thousands of entrances to niches and caves and everything, but we mapped and researched 580 caves. And I will speak about the publication before I'll finish. So we want to publish, of course, all the excavations and the corpus of caves in a series of publication. It will be in English. Probably it will be the publisher will be the Israel Antiquities Authority, and it will be separated into sections. Okay, each area of the Judean Desert will get a chapter or a book. The first book about the caves in the area of Qumran, 2 kilometers to the north of Qumran and 5 kilometers to the south of Qumran, is actually almost done, and we are working on it right now. We will continue to work on that in the summer, in this summer. Eventually, I hope in this summer we will finish to work our writing, and then we'll pass it to the publisher. And we are writing, in the process of writing, also the second and third books about, mostly about the excavations that we excavated and the ravines or wadis from En-Gedi to the south. So this is for now what we did. This is the status of our project, and this is your time now to ask questions. And thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much, Eitan. That was fantastic. You gave us a absolutely wonderful picture of what's going on. It's incredible work, super impressive, and equally super impressive is the speed with which you're going to publish, which I'm sure is not so often the case among from any archaeological projects. So
yes.
Many congratulations. Now we have some terrific questions, and I think in this case I might, because time is getting short, and I think usually we unmute people and they ask their own questions, but if everybody will agree, I will simply ask them in your names, and forthwith. The first question came from Simon Goulden. We know how the modern excavators managed to access the caves, but how does he think that Chalcolithic people did it?
So it's a good question. People ask it all the time. And actually, I also asked myself this question, but maybe I have an answer. First of all, people are doing dangerous things when they are in danger, okay? So I suppose that during the Chalcolithic period and also during the Bar-Kokhba period, those people who entered to the caves were in danger, in very, very danger. And you just need to imagine the Roman army, the biggest and strongest army in the world at that time, running after a group of rebellions into the desert, where they thought that they will be safe over there. So they need to take a chance in order maybe to survive, okay? So it could be also that people fell down. It could be, okay? But they had ropes at that time. They had ropes. They used ropes, and we, in our excavation, we found also remains of ropes. So they probably used it. It can also be that that there were rock shelves that people walked through to enter the cave, but now they are not accessible, maybe because of geological changes. It could be. So this is my answer to this enigmatic questions.
Well, thank you. That certainly brings the realities of the situation home to us very vividly. And now Andrew Savchenko would like to ask you whether there's an estimate of how many people lived in the caves at any given time, and a related second part, where did they obtain water?
Mhm. Okay, so we think that of course, it depends. Every cave is different. Okay, there are bigger caves that maybe, uh, um, let's say, 30, 40, 50 people can get inside. And there are small caves that it could be that just a very small group of people could sit inside, such as 3, 4, 5 rebellions. That's it. So we have both kind of caves that we researched. We excavated actually last week. We excavated a cave, very small cave, uh, only 3 on 4 meters. That was the cave. That's it. But we found inside of it, we found arrowheads from the Roman period and other artifacts which belongs to rebellions, not from the Bar-Kokhba period actually, but from the first revolt, from the Great Revolt, revolt against the Romans. So this was a small cave with small amount of people. The bigger caves, such as the cave of the letters and the cave of horror, probably much bigger group of people got inside, but not more than 50, 60, maybe, but it's an estimation. Now, from where they got the water, so close to the cave of the horror, there are how you call it? It's seasonal water. Um, how you call it in English? Gevim, sinkholes. I don't know. Okay, so in the winter you have water over there. During the summer you cannot get water. So I suppose it was during the summer, during the winter, so they had water close to the cave. Okay, and that's it.
May I just come in quickly here with a supplementary? Presumably this does not apply to the Chalcolithic people who are up there. Circumstances, I suppose, were very different, but should we assume that they were cave dwellers who lived there, or refugees from some unknown whatever it is?
So we think it's refugees from something happened, but because it's a prehistoric period,
Yeah.
there are no stories about that. So we just need to imagine, okay, by looking and searching and researching the findings.
Sure. And then Anthony is saying he'd be interested to learn how much use you and your colleagues make of TLS, sonar, and other aids for mapping and recording the caves.
Okay, so by mapping the cave, usually we are doing it by hand, okay, with lasers. But in some of the caves, mostly during our excavations, we also used photogrammetry. Okay, so it's a technique where you photo thousands of photos inside the cave, And then you have a computerized system that can attach one photo to the other and then to build it with 3 dimensions, okay, 3D. And so in some cases, we use this technological issue. And we also, by the way, used it by using drones that took thousands of photos of the cliff, okay? Because we wanted in the Judean Desert, there is a problem to get the real height of the cave, okay? The height according to the sea level. So the GPS is not giving you the right height of the cave. By using this system, you can get the right and the very accurate height of the cave. Okay, so we used some of those technical.
Great. Thank you. And Roberta Harris, can you date, please, the large basket from Murabat 3?
So not precisely now. We just got the results from the laboratory. They told us, 10,500 years ago, but we are still waiting for the report. So I don't want to be, I want to be accurate. When we will get the report from the laboratories, we will know it for sure, okay?
And Celia Berghoffen, are there plans to conduct DNA testing on the Cave of Horror skeleton?
Yes, yeah.
Great. Soon?
It depends by the people that are doing it. But yes, it's part of our schedule, yeah.
Then we have warm thanks from Louise. So interesting. Thank you very much. And we had somebody, I understand, raised a hand. Is there someone in the audience who's not doing the chat but wanting to ask a question, or has that gone away? Well, in that case, wait a minute, here's some more coming in.
Might I ask a question?
We have one from Michael Loftus, and then I'll hand over to you. Yes. What, if any, measures are taken to prevent illegal excavations? Can anything be done? Well, you could certainly answer that, Eitan.
Yes. So first of all, the survey itself is one of the solutions for the looting activities in the Judean Desert, because, like I said, if 4 years ago we didn't knew where in which cave there is a possibility for looting activity, because you can find there a lot or very interesting and important artifacts. Now we know to where to inspect, okay? Which caves are more important for us to protect than the others. So I think that this project, one good thing that it did is this issue. And of course, we are continuing to inspect all the time the caves. We are using also human informers that are inspecting the antiquities market or group of looters. So we all the time, this is day-to-day jobs that we are doing in the Judean Desert, but also all around the state of Israel.
Well, and more thanks, as you can all read in the chat. Simon Goulden says, really fascinating. It felt like a news report rather than a research paper. Well, we aim to be everything to everybody. So all things. That's great and nice, if not so complimentary to research papers. David Jacobson, the area that you've been investigating is a narrow strip of cliffs, indeed. What about caves further inland from the Dead Sea?
So you are correct. We mostly surveyed the cliffs. We continued to survey also west of the cliffs to something like 2 or 3 kilometers to the depths of the Judean Desert. But there is much to do also in the inner parts of the Judean Desert. So you are very correct.
Great. And someone from the audience, I promised a chance. Who was it? I've lost
It
them
was
now.
Avi, if I might.
Oh, hello. Yeah, please go ahead.
Eitan, if I remember correctly, there's an abandoned Chalcolithic temple in En-Gedi. Has there been any connection established between any of the caves and that abandoned Chalcolithic temple?
Yeah, so there is a cave in Nachal Mishmar Valley, that Pesach Bar Adon excavated in the 60s, in 61, called the Cave of the Treasure. And inside the cave, not the bronze, no, it's, okay. So all the
I think it's
Copper.
bronze implements.
Copper.
Copper, right? Yeah. Thank you, Judy. So the copper implements maybe from the temple in En-Gedi were concealed in the cave. Okay, so this is the connection from the temple to one of the caves. That's it. Okay, we don't know about something else.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Liz Freed, as well as saying, just great, wants to know, after you rappelled down, how did you get back up? You saw this.
Yeah, so we are using our hands, and also not just. We have some implements that we can climb easily to the top. So yeah.
So she doesn't have to worry about you. That's good.
But still, it's hard.
It's time is moving on. We could go on and on asking you questions, but you've given us a huge amount of your time and expertise and personal experience, very much hot off the press. It was a real privilege. So thank you very much indeed, Eitan. May we try to applaud one way or another, audibly.
Thank you very much.